Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. 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 Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari. Gopi Jana Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari. Gopi Girivara. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. 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 Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvrajagacharya Sata Shishimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagopana Sham Kund Radha Kund Gita Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Yamunamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premananda. Hari Hari Bolo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga and His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from the 10th canto, chapter 49, which is Akrura's mission in Hastinapur, and we're on text 4. So Uvasa Katichin Masan Ragyo Vrita Vivitsaya Dusprajasyalpa Sarasya Kala Chandanuvartina Uvasa Kachitin Masan Ragyo Vrita Vivitsaya Dusprajasyalpa Sarasya Kala Chandanuvartinaha Uvasakati Chinmasan Ragyo Vrita Vivitsaya Dusprajasyalpa Sarasya Kala Chandanuvartinaha Uvasakati Chinmasan Ragyo Vrita Vivitsaya Dusprajasyalpa Sarasya Kala Chandanuvartinaha. Anybody else? Vasa Katichin Masan Ragyo Vrita Vivitsaya Dusprajasyalpa Sarasya Kala Chandanuvartinaha Vasa Katichin Vasan Ragyo Vrita Vivitsaya Sprajasyalpa Sarasya Uvasa, resided. Katichit, some. Masan, months. Ragyaha, of the king, Dhritarashtra. Vrita, the activity. Vivitsaya, with the desire of finding out. Dusprasjasya, whose sons were wicked. Alpa, weak. Sarasya, whose determination. Kala, of mischievous persons like Karna. Chanda, the desires. Anuvartinaha, who tended to follow. So there's no purport, and I'll read the commentaries by the Acharyas, but I'm also going to read 5 and 6 quickly, and then I'll go to the commentaries by the Acharyas. But let's do the translation first of 4, which is, he remained in Hastinapur for several months to scrutinize the conduct of the weak-willed king, who had bad sons and who was inclined to give into the whims of the mischievous advisors. So we can repeat. He remained in Hastinapur for several months to scrutinize the conduct of the weak-willed king, who had bad sons and who was inclined to give in to the whims of mischievous advisors. Okay, so I'll read 5 and 6. Teja oja balam viryam prashrayadims chasad gunan prajanuragam parteshu nahasadbis chirikshitam kritam chadar Tarishtrayaryad Garadanadya Peshalam Achakyao Sarvam Evasmai Brita Vidura Evacha. Translation. Kunti and Vidura described to Akrura in detail the evil intentions of Dhritarashtra's sons, who could not tolerate the great qualities of Kunti's sons, such as their powerful influence, military skill, physical strength, bravery and humility, or the intense affection these citizens had for them. Kunti and Vidura also told Akrura about how the sons of Dhritarashtra had tried to poison the Pandavas and carry out other such plots. All right. So I'll read the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti, Jiva Goswami, and Sanatan Goswami for text 4. And very short, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur shares that Akrura wanted to observe, and these are basically descriptive, the behavior of the king, whose nature was to follow the will, chanda, of mischievous men, kala, like Karna. Jiva Goswami shares that he had to stay many months to find out the crooked nature of the king. The cause was the bad sons. And then Sanatan Goswami shares, this verse describes the unjust acts of the king. He stayed for several months since it took some time to learn the nature of the evil king. The sequence of adjectives or descriptors in order of cause and effect. The conclusion was that he was evil. And then 5 and 6. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur shares that the sons of Dhritarashtra could not tolerate the influence, teja, skills with weapons, oja, strength, balam, courage, viryam, and other good qualities of the Pandavas. Kunti and Vidura ascribed also the unjust acts, apethalam, committed by them against the Pandavas. Jiva Goswami shares that the word adin means other qualities such as shyness and determination. The poison was given to Bhim. Besides this, they threw him in the water. There were other plans such as trapping the Pandavas in the lac house. Not only Kunti said this. Vidura, who was neutral to both sides, since he was an uncle to all the children, said this. And then Sanatan shares, the word adin means other qualities such as shyness and determination. The sons could not tolerate their excellent qualities, sadgunan. This list starts with those qualities which the sons could not tolerate the most. Danadi means giving poison and the methods of doing it, or various bad advices given to kill them. They told this to Akrura, even though as impartial as he was, having relationships to both parties. Even Api Vidura confirmed what Kunti said. The word cha all indicates that even the servants of Drona or the family priests said the same things. So Omagani Timiranda Shagananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So in thinking about this, I was thinking, obviously what stands out is that this is all about envy and jealousy towards others having things that we don't have, right? And so I was thinking about how this attitude so disconnects us from Krishna. And I've said it many times, we've heard that the avenue to the heart and the soul is the ears, and being able to hear. And when we don't have humility, and when there's envy and anger and lust and greed and all these other things, they'll shut that avenue for being able to hear, to be able to change our hearts. And you can see this in Dhritarashtra. Even though he's getting so much good instruction, he even admits that he has good instructions. I hear everything you said, you're right on point, it's all good, but I can't hear it because I'm too attached to my sons, and I'm going to do whatever they say, and I'm going to commit whatever evil acts. And the thing is that when you're in a position of leadership, it's not just about the affection that you have for, your immediate family, and you see that a lot of times in different political situations, that there's a lot of nepotism, right? And the problem is that, okay, you want to favor your family. I mean, even Krishna favors his devotees, even though he's equal to everyone. But the thing is when you're in a leadership, when you take a leadership position, several things is that you're not only responsible for your family, you're responsible for the entire nation and the entire country and their care. And this, behavior is not just affecting the Pandavas and, not affecting just the social situation, but it's familiar, but it's affecting everybody in society and their welfare. And when you're in a leadership position, whether you're on the left or the right, your responsibility is to take care of everyone. And when you neglect someone, you get a karmic reaction for not taking care, because you've taken that responsibility in a position of leadership to care for everybody and their welfare, and not to be partial. And when you are, then you're going to get into a load of trouble. And you can see that with Dhritarashtra. I mean, he's just, thing after thing. I mean, even like which was mentioned, I mean, you think, and what made, the situation so heinous is even, okay, you want to kill the sons of the the Pandavas, but they even tried to kill Mother Kunti in the House of Black. I mean, come on, and not even really care, and even continue on with their behavior. So you can see how this lust and this pride and this envy just keeps, carrying you down into this thick whirlpool, just deeper and deeper and deeper, and you keep going and going and going. And one of the stories that popped into my mind was in the fourth canto is the the story of King Vena. And it's such a, I mean, if you read this story, it's in the fourth canto, chapter 13 and 14, of his behavior. It's really heinous. It's really amazing, that he was born. And it was all due to bad association, which is another key point, is when there is bad association, the impact that it has is far-reaching, not just your own, not just your own life. And so I wanted to go through it a little bit. Excuse me. Of the story of King Vena, to emphasize the worst of the worst, and what this envy looks like and how it impacts other people. So it's talking about how Vena was born partially in the dynasty of real religion because his grandfather was death personified, and the boy grew up as his follower and became a greatly irreligious person. So his mother is Sunita, and she's the she's the daughter of death personified. And so generally these qualities come from the mother to the son, and so on. And what he did was this: he would actually get together and let's see if I can. Right. So after fixing his bow and arrow, the cruel boy used to go to the forest and unnecessarily kill innocent deer. And as soon as he came, all the people would cry, "Here comes cruel Vena! Here comes cruel Vena!" The boy was so cruel that while playing with young boys his own age, he would kill them very mercilessly with no cause, and as if they were animals meant for slaughter. Right. So this is his whole attitude, and so what's happening here is that then the king Anga, who's his father, seeing all this, decided to detach from everything and leave for the forest. And so him stepping out of that position, the sages had no other choice but to put King Vena in the position of king, to put him in that position as king. And the behavior just continued, and again, it's just this example of when he became all powerful with 8 kinds of opulences, he became too proud. So again, there's this, understanding that, power just is something that, what is that saying? It's like power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Thank you. And you can see that because when you get this position of, then you're thinking that it's all you're doing versus seeing that it's Krishna who's given you all the abilities to do everything that you have, any strengths, any gifts, any intelligence, anything that you have, any of the opulences you have that are given, they're given by Krishna. And so he became so proud, and the sages, constantly, went back to him and told him, you need to think about who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, what your position is, let these sacrifices continue, and everything will, glorify you, end up glorifying your position. But he goes so far as to basically claim that he's the Supreme Personality himself. And you're just, when I was reading it, I was just so blown away, of his responses, and I wanted to read some of them. King Vena replied, "You are not at all experienced," and this is these great sages giving him sage advice. "It is very much regrettable that you are maintaining something which is not religious, although they were, and are accepting it as religion. Indeed, I think you are giving up your real husband who maintains you and are searching after some paramur worship." So King Vena was so foolish that he accused the saintly sages of being inexperienced like small children. In other words, he was accusing them of not having perfect knowledge. In this way, he would reject their advice and make accusations against them, comparing them to a woman who does not care for her husband, but who maintains a lover on the side, basically. The purpose of this simile is apparent. It is the duty of the Kshatriyas to engage the Brahmanas in different types of religious activities, and the king is supposed to be the maintainer of the Brahmanas. If the Brahmanas do not worship the king, but instead go to the demigods, they are polluted as unchaste women. So basically, what we're understanding here is that he's gaslighting them. Basically, he's trying to flip what he's actually guilty of and point at everybody else, sort of like the man behind the curtain, like in The Wizard of Oz. Don't look at me. These are all my qualities. I'm going to hide all of them, but I'm going to keep pointing at you and saying you're all guilty of all these different things, to create this facade so that you don't actually see what I'm doing, right? And so he's kind of trying to flip it away from himself. Those who do, out of gross, this is so interesting, those who out of gross ignorance do not worship the king, who is actually the supreme personality of Godhead, dude, I mean, experience happiness neither in this world nor in the world after death. I mean, and you can hear the Bhagavad Gita, but he thinks he's God repeating all of this. You are so much devoted to the demigods, but who are they? Indeed, your affection for these demigods is exactly like the affection of an unchaste woman who neglects her married life and gives all attention to the paramour. Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Indra, Vayu, the master of air, Yama, the superintendent of death, the sun god, the director of rainfall, Kuvera, the treasurer, the moon god, the predominating deity of earth, Agni, the fire god, Varuna, the lord of the waters, and all others who are great and competent to bestow benedictions or to curse, all abide in the body of the king, in other words, in me. For this reason, the king is known as the reservoir of all demigods, who are simply parts and parcels of the king's body. King Vena continued, for this reason, O Brahmanas, you should abandon your envy of me, and by your ritualistic activities you should worship me and offer me all paraphernalia. If you are intelligent, you should know that there is no personality superior to me who can accept the first oblations of all sacrifices. So the sage Maitreya continued, thus the king who became unintelligent due to his sinful life and deviation from the right path became actually bereft of all good fortune. He could not accept the requests because his ears were shut of the great sages, which the sages put before him with great respect, and therefore he condemned them. Because when they were speaking to him, they were very respectful. They gave him the information, allowed him the opportunity to take it all in, but he's like, no, I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Y'all have got this all wrong. So you can see how pride, takes you, even if we're simple in the beginning, can take us to a very dark place. And so it's something that we have to be really careful about, in our devotional life because that's really what's carried us away and disconnected us from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and our relationship with him. And that's why we're, where we are. And I'm speaking in general in third person versus speaking like you and maybe me, yes. But, just thinking about, because I know that I have pride and I know that I have envy, and I'm constantly trying to work on that. But remembering that what keeps us lost is this disconnection to Krishna, and thinking about how we can actually, get past this, and what is it that we do, because we can see in Dhritarashtra, we can see in King Vena, this behavior and all this, at the root of this is this envy and pride. But then I was listening to a class yesterday of my spiritual master, and he was talking about complacence is actually the enemy of the devotee. And I was thinking about how this is really tied to what we're talking about here, because complacence, is not really recognizing, not being introspective. And the characteristics of the opposite of being complacent is attentiveness, right? And we hear in the chanting the offenses, the 10 offenses, that the root cause of all those offenses that causes all those other offenses is inattentiveness, right? So this complacence that comes with, this lack of attentiveness, lack of introspection and humility, right? Because in order to be introspective and look at yourself, you have to be humble, and then mixed in with my spiritual master's mood is you have to laugh at yourself, right? You can't take yourself so seriously. And that takes a little bit of humility too, maybe a lot of humility, right? Is to be able to laugh at yourself, right? And realize, because the other opposite of that, of being so introspective that you become depressed and you don't do anything, oh, woe is me, I just always picture this person on this chaise lounge, over the side, just crying woefully, about their situation. And then what can you do? How productive can you be? To me, life has always been about finding balance, justice, of the scale, but really about finding the balance of life. And that's what devotional life is very much like, is trying to find the balance. And to me, Krishna consciousness is the perfect balance of everything. It's not over endeavor, it's not under endeavor. It's about knowing how to sleep enough but not too much, eat enough, not too little. It's about this perfect balance of being introspective but not becoming depressed, but then also not looking at yourself and taking responsibility for your actions. And so, I think this is really something that's valuable to look at when we're, practicing our devotional service, because we do want to uproot all these different weeds that are within the heart, right? And the anartas. But the whole point of practicing Krishna consciousness is to do that with our best friend holding our hand. And our best friend is Krishna, because he's the one who gives us strength. He's the one who, can purify us. We can't do that ourselves. We're pretty incapable. Yes, we have to take responsibility. Yes, we have to take the actions. Yes, we have to be attentive. But if we and we've got two hands, so who holds the other hand? Would be the spiritual master, right? So if we have Krishna, the spiritual master, taking us and carrying us and making sure, they're like the balancing pole when you're on this razor's edge of devotional life, and when you've got them, they've always got your back. And so that's what it's about. It's about giving your heart, being open to hearing through humility, so that we can eradicate all this envy and pride. Because who wants to, and certainly I would say, at least I'm speaking for myself, I'm hoping that I'm not on the level of King Vamana. I know I'm not on the level of King Vana. But, in the story of Dhritarashtra and the Kurus and the Pandavas, it's a little bit more subtle. It's not as like I'm going out and killing my friends, right? Or that we're going out and killing our friends, but this pride is a very subtle thing. And this envy can be a very subtle thing. And the thing is if we experience it, it's okay. It's like having it's like, my spiritual master talks about the offenses and how, it's okay to have desires. It's okay to have all these things, because that's natural in our position. But if we don't do anything about it, that's where we get in trouble, right? If we do things wrong, it's not like we need to beat ourselves up endlessly. Just take responsibility for it and then try to figure out how you can make that adjustment in your devotional life so that you can continue, challenging yourself to elevate or step up the game, so that you can continue to grow devotionally and not become complacent. Because again, to me, that complacence is the root of, in conjunction with an inattentiveness that can hold us down and hold us back from progressing in our devotional life. And so, I also, in looking up humility, there's a famous verse in the 13th chapter. It's 8 through 12 of Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, 8 through 12. And it talks about this because what we're doing is we're expanding our knowledge, and not just rote knowledge, not just book knowledge, not just becoming a pundit, but, or a guru, or, somebody in, just full of knowledge, but we're trying to apply that knowledge so that we can have a relationship with Krishna. And it really speaks well to that in this verse, and in the purport that Prabhupada shares. It goes in depth to leading in and looking at what knowledge is, where it carries us, and the beginning of being able to accept that. So this process of knowledge is sometimes misunderstood by less intelligent men as being the interaction of the field of activity. So in other words, thinking it's a bodily thing to just gain knowledge, intelligence, and then acquire the profit, adoration, and distinction for gaining that. But actually, this is the real process of knowledge, Krishna consciousness. If one accepts this process, then the possibility of approaching the absolute truth exists. This is not the interaction of the 24 elements, like the mind just churning away in the body, as described before. This is actually the means to get out of entanglement of those elements. The embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is a casing made of 24 elements. And the process of knowledge, as described here, is the means to get out of it. Of all the descriptions of the process of knowledge, the most important is described in the first line of the 11th verse. Mai chananya yogena bhaktir avya bicharani. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. But if one takes, and this is the 19 values that are listed: humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master. There's a whole list, right? But if one takes to devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, the other 19 items automatically develop with him. And this again is showing you the active principle that we're not in control. We're not the one who has all these qualities. We're being given these qualities. And so that's why we try to remember that humility is what allows us to obtain those and obtain that knowledge of Krishna, right? So, but if one takes to devotional service in full Krishna conscious, the other 19 items actually automatically develop with him. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana savair gunastatra samaste suraha. All the good qualities of knowledge develop in one who has attained the stage of devotional service. The principle of accepting a spiritual master, as mentioned in the 8th verse, is essential. Even for one who takes to devotional service, it is most important. Transcendental life begins when one accepts a bona fide spiritual master. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, clearly states here that this process of knowledge is the actual path. Anything speculated beyond this is nonsense. As for the knowledge outlined here, the items may be analyzed as follows. So the first line of knowledge is humility. Means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. So I'm not going to go into reading the whole thing, but for me, all of this tying together of humility, having a spiritual master, because it's so important to be able to hear from the spiritual master to obtain this. And to be able to hear, again, there has to be this humility. And it just reminded me as I was reading this, because when I first came to Krishna consciousness, I had this really intense dream right before I was getting initiated, my first initiation. And I had this dream where I was on my knees and kind of, folding my hands before my spiritual master. And he had a sword, and it was going to come down and it was going to cut off my ear. And I could understand after hearing this, or after thinking about the dream, is that hearing was going to be required, and that if I didn't hear attentively, that I was going to lose my ability to become Krishna consciousness. It was really intense. But the whole point is this, humility and not letting all these things contaminate the body as we're progressing in our devotional life, and understanding the value of, being humble. Because these examples are giving us, these are giving us extreme examples of what it looks like not to be humble, of not to be able to hear, right, and to progress in our devotional life, which is so important and so valuable. So ultimately that we don't suffer, because there's so much suffering, there's so much pain, in living in this material world. At least that's been my experience of, and why I'm sure that I took to Krishna consciousness of, because I really didn't have shelter, and I really didn't have protection, and I really didn't have knowledge, and I really couldn't find happiness, and I was looking in so many different places. But after coming to Krishna consciousness, I can see that, this is my real home, and that I have a place to belong, and that I have a place where all my gifts and abilities have a place to reside and to be utilized for the purpose of, becoming Krishna conscious. Because otherwise, those same gifts and those same talents and those same abilities stimulate pride, stimulate all these things, and then attach me to this cycle of birth and death over and over and over again. And, it's like, running on that, like the little gerbils on their little rat wheels, just going and going and going and not really getting anything out of it except for just running in this cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease over and over and over again. And again, it's a very subtle thing, this pride and envy. So I guess just to kind of summarize, just, being willing to be introspective and, not take yourself so seriously and laugh a little bit about it, and because I think when you do that, and I'm sure that one of the reasons my spiritual masters, shares that and laughs all the time and not takes things so seriously, is, that you're able to let go and move on, right? If you become too obsessed about it, overly obsessed about it, then you can't just let go and move on, and with that lightness, there's that ability to kind of let go. So I don't know if there's any comments or thoughts or. Oh, yeah, what happened to him in the end of King Vena is that they ended up killing him. They were like, okay, this has gone too far, and you can see this echoed with Dhritarashtra and all his sons being lost, is when you take up that envy, you lose your ability. And so, yeah, they got rid of King Venu, and then what ended up happening is his mother was so attached that she actually kept him embalmed, for lack of a better word, and then they ended up churning different parts of his body, and from the churning ended up coming Prithu, and his wife, Archie. Thank you. And so he was able to leave because he's an expansion, right, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because the sages felt like this whole line is, a line of devotees. He just through bad association ended up the way that he did. And so they did have to get rid of him, even though they gave him the best of opportunities to take a different direction, just like Dhritarashtra was given so many, and the sons were given so many opportunities to take a different direction. So, mm-hmm. Hmm. 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 Yeah, I mean, and it can be a little bit challenging. And so what she's, even in the association of the devotees, there can be attachment to those that kind of stimulate us less in the direction of Krishna consciousness or more towards our desires. They're good devotees. Because they fulfill our material desires. Right, not because they're phyllis devotees, which is kind of going in that direction. And, I mean, I've experienced that in the, I think it's, again, for me, it's always about finding the balance and this introspection in that you're still in the association of the devotees. That's going to be better than outside of the devotees. And even though it stimulates your material desires, to me, the first thing that popped in my mind is at least you're acknowledging that there's something that's not quite, balanced about it. And so to me, the first step in making any change is acknowledging that there's, a problem. Not that you disassociate, but that you strengthen yourself through other devotional practices. It's not that you have to give that up, but strengthen your devotional life so that it doesn't impact you as much, and then maybe you make better decisions. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Sri Radha Golokananda and the association of the devotees.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Vipan Vikayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam Adipurusham.
Uh, 62. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. 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 Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite. Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite. Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite. Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. Radhe Jaya Madhava Daite. Damodara Rati Vardhana Veshe. Damodara Rati Vardhana Veshe. Hari Nishkuta Vrinda Vipineshe. Hari Nishkuta Vrinda Vipineshe. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. 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 Vrishabhanudadi Navashashi Leke. Vrishabhanudadi Navashashi Leke. Lalita Saki Gunaramita Vishake. Lalita Saki Gunaramita Vishake. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. Karunam Kurumai Karuna Bharite. Karuna Kurumai Karuna Bharite. Sanaka Sanatana Varnita Charite. Sanaka Sanatana Varnita Charite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh Jaya Radha Goloka Nanda, Radha Goloka Nanda Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Shama Sundar, Radha Shama Sundar Shri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Bol. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. All glory is unto you, beloved of Madhava, object of worship for all the young girls of Gokula. You dress yourself in such a way as to increase Lord Damodar's love and attachment for you. You are the controller of Vrindavana, the pleasure groves of Lord Hari. You are a new moon arisen from the ocean of King Vrishabhanu. You are the friend of Lalita, and your wonderful qualities, friendliness, kindness, and faithfulness to Krishna, endear you to Vishaka. You are an ocean of compassion, and your divine characteristics are described by the four Kumaras. Sanaka, Sanatana, Sananda, and Sanatana. O Radha, please be merciful to me.
Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Etadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi, page 12. Ardaiva Idrishami Hanjani Manaraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tororapi Suhishuna Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamae Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Bhatidamam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Bhat Nagaja Stita Duli Sadrashim Vachintaya Nayanam Gladashu Daraya Vadanam Gadgadurgayarya Pulakarnishitam Vapugada Tavanama Grahaneva Vishyati Yugayatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlishyavapadam Ritam Manastumam Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva Yatatatava Vidadatu Lampato Mat Prananatastu Saeva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen in the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Shastrika Ki Jai.